and we're going to finally retiring from the UFC. It's been a long time coming, okay? Now we finally got our decision, because everything about the heavyweight division predicated on Jon Jones. Everything about Tom Aspinall's career was predicated on Jon Jones. So whatever it is that Jon Jones does, whatever it is that Jon Jones needs to do, it is all predicated on the UFC, okay? It is all predicated on whether we're going to have an undisputed champion or an undisputed champion and an interim champion. So what we have is exactly as it follows. An interim champion in Tom Aspinall, finally being crowned the undisputed champion. So here we go. Just wanted to make sure that everything was on and everything was on and pop. There was no interference, that the audio is good, that there is no issue in that. So everybody on the chat, let me know on the comment section below what you think of that, because the first thing that we're going to do is we're go over UFC Baku. Okay, it's a great card. I mean, you know what? The main event and the co-main event was a little bit lackluster, especially with what happened with Khalil Rountree, right? Straight off the top, we're going to go from Khalil Rountree all the way down to Wahab and Usman, which was a controversial fight in and of itself. There was a lot of controversial fights that went on in this particular card. I got to tell you, the reason why you see a lot of controversial cards happening is primarily because of the fact that it's MMA. MMA is a very unpredictable sport. When you have a very unpredictable sport like MMA, what you have is just chaos, right? And you got to expect chaos at all turns. So we're going to get to the bottom of that. Also, we're going to talk about Jon Jones's legacy, what it means after his retirement that has now been announced to the world. Tom Aspinall is now the undisputed champion of the world, and I wanted to react to it. By the way, I didn't see much news on this particular topic yet. You would imagine there's going to be a lot of people that are going to talk about this particular news and what has happened, what has gone on, and what is going to happen for Tom Aspinall moving forward. But first, before we do that, I want to get to the whole entire card, okay? Because obviously I went through Rountree and Hill first, right? So we're going to go from Hill all the way to Fiziev, and then all the way down to Curtis Blades and that crazy fight with Taufik and Oralbai. Okay, it was very close, right? Just out of nowhere, submitted him. Okay, submitted him with a Kimura. And then you had Nazim Sadikov taking on Moto. Okay, it was a great comeback by Nazim. Nazim got rocked in that fight a couple of times, right? Got hit with some hard shots, and then out of nowhere, he just decided, you know what? I'm going to end this fight right now. Gets a KO, and it was literally the fight of the night because of the back and forth that they had going on. Muhammad Nayev versus Grad. A controversial decision, okay? Nayev was the hometown favorite of this fight. Okay, being the hometown favorite, I think a lot of people are going to speculate a lot of, well, you know, a lot of foul play that's going on here. Is it true? We don't know. I mean, obviously, this is a new commission in terms of MMA. Now, look, I know they've had MMA fights in Azerbaijan before, okay? But it's one thing to have MMA fights in Azerbaijan, and then it's one thing to have a UFC fight at the highest level. So we don't know if these judges realistically were in favor of Muhammad Nayev and Grad over Grad, or they just, I don't know, they just saw the fight differently in ways that, all right, you know what, we can see how Grad may have lost this one. All right, how about the Tyson Korean, the Korean Mike Tyson? Okay, gets a decision win over Oban Elliott. You know what? What was great about the Tyson Korean right here was that he had great grappling prowess, right? You would think that with a name like the Korean Tyson, that he would be somehow a great striker. But he's not just a great striker, he is also a great grappler, and he showed that with Oban Elliott. He controlled Oban Elliott almost every single round. Okay, and then moving on from another controversial fight right there is Ismail Nadorov. He loses points to Park, okay, after a few fouls that these guys have had going on, foul after foul, eye pokes after eye pokes, low blows after low blows. All of a sudden, Park took him down, out-wrestled him, and took control of the fight as it was going on. So as the control was eminent, was there, it was almost like as if it didn't matter whether they were going to go take points or not. I'm going to be honest with you, that's the kind of fight it was. It would not have mattered whether they took points away from that guy. It really would not have mattered. And then after that, they had two female fights at 135. Daria defeats at 135. Segula defeats Irina at 135, both by a decision. And then El-Kheer gets a decision over Azmat. Now, Azat gave a good account of himself. Was it enough? Was it enough for him to give a good account of himself on this one? We don't know. You know what? Here's what we do know, okay? That guy is not going anywhere in the UFC, especially not in the division that they're at right now, right? That was the 125 division. They need to build new guys in the 125 division, and yeah, man, that's the fight right there. All right, that's a fight right there that's controversial in and of itself, similar to a lot of people getting hometown decisions, because remember, Azerbaijan is very close to that of Dagestan, right? They are an Eastern European Muslim region, so you got to think maybe there's a bit of some inherent bias there. Or not, or maybe, you know what, it's just the way that judges saw it, or maybe it's the inexperience aspects of judges that we may not know about. But on any regard, after that fight, yeah, you had Hamdi taking on Usman. Now, what's interesting about that fight, Usman was getting clipped quite a few times, right? Now, the Greco-Roman wrestler in the Egyptian Olympic team, Wahab, okay, he was showing his striking prowess. But for whatever reason, it wasn't enough. I mean, the judges saw it in the favor of Usman, and if that's the way that they see it, that's the way that it is. So, what are you going to do about that? Now, we talked about the fights, okay? We went over just under 10 minutes of all the fights that have gone down, all right? We have to do that. It's an MMA channel. That's how we got to start off with, hey, you know what? Most of these live streams, they start off with a small talk. Hello, Big Ink MMA, shout out to you, my man. Did you hear that Jon Jones is retiring today? Today is the day that Jon Jones is retired. Good seeing Nazim, Tagir, Fiziev win. Yeah, it was great, man. It was great to see them win because Nazim had the most exciting fight out of everybody. He had the most impressive fight. I wasn't impressed with Khalil. Well, you know what? Big Ink, the reason why you're not impressed with Khalil is because Khalil felt like he was too big for his own, he was too small for his own ego. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but put it like this, okay? What he did was hold back because he wasn't sure if Hill was going to come back out of nowhere. And you know what? Hill has high capabilities and high propensities of knocking people out. So he had to be careful, and if that's what he says that he saw in there, we can't judge that. Now look, you know Anderson Silva, he said that when he fought Damian Maia, Dana White was angry at him. Now why was he angry at him? You want to know why he was angry at him? He was angry at him due to the fact that he felt like he could have finished him and he didn't. But you know what Anderson Silva said? The same thing that Khalil Rountree said tonight. He said, you don't know what kind of dangerous guy there is out there, so therefore you don't know what I had to go through in there and the decision that I had to make in that nick of time. So I think Khalil Rountree is in that position. I thought Kuniev won against Curtis Blades. Look, so okay, that fight right there, I truly believe Kuniev won on that. He was busting up Curtis Blades. I don't know why they gave it to Curtis Blades, but you know what? It's almost like they wanted to screw one guy of their own just to show that they are not screwing everybody else that's fighting a fighter that is within the close proximity of their region or somebody that has ties to their region in any kind of way, right? So, yeah, man, Kuniev has a bright future ahead of him. Obviously, he lost to Curtis Blades. Doesn't really mean much. Just like Sergey Pavlovich, right? There was a point in the heavyweight division where we didn't know where he was going to be. He lost his first fight, I believe, to Alistair Overeem, but it showed that he only loses to the elite. Alistair Overeem has been elite for a long time. Maybe he wasn't super elite when he fought him. Maybe he was just on a decline. But the one thing you can rest assured with Pavlovich is that eventually, yeah, you know, he made it up there in the, I believe, the interim championship fight. I believe that was an interim championship fight that he had with Tom Aspinall. So, same thing with Kuniev. He loses to a top guy right now in Curtis Blades. Blades may have 2 to 3 years left after he leaves the UFC and retires from the sport. Guess what? There's Kuniev right there. And he could very well be a dark horse in that division. So, make no mistake about it. El-Kheer versus Azat was fun. It was definitely fun, right? One of those other fights, once again, where it reminds me of Arman Tsarukyan's first fight against Islam Makhachev. You see, Arman Tsarukyan gave a great account of himself in the future champion at that time when Islam Makhachev was just fighting up the ranks and just rebuilding himself up after the loss of Martins. At least he was a little bit further at that point of his career. But nonetheless, you could say the same thing about Azmat right now in his Arman Tsarukyan Islam Makhachev moment, right? That's sort of what he had going on. He gave a good account of himself, but by the end of the day, Tagir Olibov trains with Khabib, and those guys know how to win. They know how to put themselves in the right positions, and they know how to, yeah, edge off a victory. But nonetheless, the main event of this whole entire topic, you guys can continue to ask about the Azerbaijan card as much as you want, but I will go on a monologue about Jon Jones and what he has going on for his career and what is next for Tom Aspinall. So just like that, one champion becomes the undisputed champion from being the interim champion who's been waiting for a long time. And then one man ends his career as the forever champion, and that is Jon Jones. And that is something you can never take away from him, regardless of whether you think he's a coward or not. Because at that point, his conversation of whether he was one of the greatest or not can't be denied. However, what you can deny and what you can sort of judge Jon Jones on is the fact that he ducked from Tom Aspinall. And that is the only thing that you're going to judge from him. And guess what? You want to know something crazy? That is actually not the craziest thing in the world, that he ducked Tom Aspinall. I kid you not. It is not the worst thing in the world. Tom versus Almeida or Gon next. I think Gon will probably be the quintessential choice. And you want to know what's crazy about this? I'm going to tell you something very crazy about this, okay? Because first and foremost, Tom Aspinall has been waiting for 2 years, just like what Big Ank MMA here said, right? You're absolutely right about that. He has been waiting for 2 years. 2 years of his life, wondering, when am I going to fight for the championship? When is it going to be my turn? When am I going to be next? Lo and behold, Jon Jones makes him wait. You want to know why Jon Jones made him wait? And you want to know why Cyril Gane is next and what they've been doing to set up Cyril Gane in this process? Well, first off, Jon Jones wanted to keep the belt for a long time so he can surpass Cain Velasquez. While Cain Velasquez is fighting for his life in prison because of the effed up judicial system that we have here in California, here's Jon Jones sitting on his butt to try and beat this record of Cain Velasquez. Now think about this, right? All he had to do was sit out after that Stipe fight, sit out for a couple of months, and then hold on to the belt until you beat Cain Velasquez's record. He's already beaten Cain Velasquez's record as the longest sitting and reigning, undisputed champion of the UFC. Okay? He's already beaten his record. So the fact that he's beaten his record, he can now walk away as possibly, in his mind and in the matters at hand, as the greatest heavyweight of all time. Yes, Jon Jones can walk out right now as the greatest of all time. And if you want me to continue, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm about to drop some gems for you guys on this particular topic. I'm going to tell you why they've been setting up Ciryl Gane for this for a long time. Hit the like button. Somebody hit the like button, and I'm going to let you know exactly why they've been setting up Ciryl for this moment. Hit the like button. Anybody. That's all I need. Just one person to hit the like button. There you go. There's one person to hit the like button. Now hit another like button and continue on. But I'll continue on anyway just to earn your trust, because I did say just one like. So there's that one like. Here we go. The reason why they've been setting up Ciryl Gane for a while now is because they knew that Jon Jones was going to leave. Jon Jones was in a very volatile situation. Now, has Jon Jones made a lot of money? Yes, he has. And you know what? Would he have made more money had he taken this fight? Sure. But you know what? It would have ruined his legacy in terms of building his brand in the retirement phase. Because you know what? If you retire undefeated, undisputed, and forever champion, you can hold a lot of weight into that particular notion of being a champion, of being one of the greatest of all time with no challenges and without any disputes. Hence why they call it undisputed. Well, now Jon Jones is undisputed, and you can't deny him. By the way, check out everybody right now in the Oakland A's game right now as we are passing by, the Oakland A's game right here. We are near Sacramento and whatnot. So, all right. So, with that in mind, yeah, it took him 2 years for Tom. It took him 2 years to basically lead Tom on in this whole entire fiasco of such, right? So they knew that this was going to happen, right? Jon Jones cannot be denied of being a champion for the rest of his life, and that's exactly what he wants. Look, he knows in the back of his mind that he can't beat Tom Aspinall. He already said in the Nelk Boys podcast, you know what? I wish Tom nothing but the best. Give you guys a view of Sacramento real quick, right? And this is what's great about having a fight night that ends in the afternoon. I can basically spend some of my afternoons just out chilling and and doing whatever, right? So here we are. Okay. All right. Josh says Khalil smoked him. He did. And you know what? Not only could he have smoked him, he could have done a whole lot more, but he decided not to. That was a great fight night, Josh says. Big Ink says, do you think Hill should make a move to heavyweight, and what's next for him? Yeah, I definitely think heavyweight is the next move. You want to know why? Because, let's be honest, right? Hill is a big guy, and quite frankly, there's not a lot of talented guys in a heavyweight division, and a lot of these talented guys in a light heavyweight division could probably be a lot faster, a lot smoother in their striking, right? And well, there's not a lot of them that have great grappling prowess other than Tom Aspinall and now maybe Hamdi. Bro, I'm telling you, the heavyweight division is going to get stacked, right? The competition is going to get even more stacked. Look, Usman, the brother of Kamaru Usman, is in that division, okay? He just beat a Greco-Roman wrestler, and that guy right there, he's got potential to, absolutely dominate later down the road. Josh says the UFC is so backwards. Save those fights for the main cards. Which one? Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the Jamal Hill and the Khalil Rountree fight? Do you believe that that would have been better for a UFC pay-per-view? If so, let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, this is what they have going on, right? And now, just to be clear, just to be very clear, Jon Jones did officially retire, right? He did officially retire. Is that confirmed? Let me know if you guys, if you know one way or another. Let me know one way if you know that that's confirmed. I think it is, right? I think they finally let everybody know right now after a UFC event like this. They didn't want to do it at a big major UFC event and overshadow all the things that would have been going on with, let's say, Ilia Topuria as a new champion, or perhaps maybe Charles Oliveira in an upset, right? They didn't want to offset any of that. They didn't want to distract those particular notions. So they wanted to do it at a fight card that was big overseas, but maybe not as big in America. And right now, the biggest news in America right now, MMA-wise, is Jon Jones retiring. Josh says, like Fiziev, Hill, Rountree, Aspinall, that is a bomb main card right there. That's what I'm talking about, right? So, you know what? Going back to the Jon Jones thing, you see how we're just talking about the next fights that are coming up? We're talking about Fiziev, we're talking about Aspinall, we're talking about Hill moving up to heavyweight after a loss like this, and then we're talking about Rountree potentially getting a title shot of some sort, right? So we're looking at all of this, and then we wonder to ourselves, man, you know what? You know what? As I wonder to myself, just like that, Jon Jones, it could become insignificant. And you know what? He knows that. And just like Conor McGregor, now he's becoming insignificant to where, I'm not saying that he's doing it on purpose, but the only time that he does get any news articles written about him is when he punches people at bars. I mean, think about that. Think about that in proper perspective. Look at this. We got some skaters right there filming right here. See, we're in downtown Sacramento right now, guys. Facts. Jiri versus Khalil would be a good fight. That would be a good fight, actually. Yeah, Khalil versus Jiri. I'm surprised that fight has never happened yet. But just like what we're talking about, right? Insignificant. Jon Jones has already become an insignificant figure in the world of MMA within a couple of hours. Look at this. Before I go on to my monologue, I want to So just like what I was saying, right? All of a sudden, Jon Jones is insignificant. Just like those cars that were passing by. Those cars are cool, but guess what? There's more cool cars coming your way down right here. You see that? There's a new car right there. Boom, just like that. You forgot about that car that's coming through right now. Okay? Just like that. All forgotten. That's how this game is. That's how this game is. 1 minute you're hot, the next minute you're not. But you know what? By the end of the day, Jon Jones gets to retire significant in the history of the UFC. All of the accomplishments that he's made. And on top of that, don't be surprised if he even makes the Hall of Fame within International Fight Week this year, because that is a great possibility, bro. What is the dead body laying in your back seat? That is not a dead body, my man. I am driving around with my kid. You know what I mean? So, but that's neither here or there. You know what I mean? I don't like to put my personal things out there, but that's what I said, right? Like I told you guys, this is the reason why I do MMA content on the go, not just in my office or in my studio or elsewhere, but everywhere else. So yeah, haha, sorry, I just saw that. Yeah, okay. So yeah, but don't be weird, you know what I mean? So, on any regard, yeah, but yeah, anyways, but shout outs to you though, for that observation. Not exactly the observation that I wanted everyone to know, but nonetheless, that it is what it is. You know what I mean? By the end of the day, look. Speaking of which, look at these horses right in front of us right now. So a little horse and carriage right there. He says, that's cool, man. Being a father is a big W. For sure, man. For sure, right? Just trying to hold it down, right? Not only am I trying to, do content, do some work, do, everything else in between, to try and make ends meet, but also, come here and talk to you guys about MMA and, a sport that we all love and that we all cherish and appreciate. And so, there's nothing better than that, right? There is absolutely nothing better than that. And, life is great, as such. And speaking of which, look, here's the thing, right? I know a lot of people are going to call Jon Jones a duck. They're going to call him a chicken. They're going to call him a coward. They're going to call him all types of names, right? But I guarantee you, after time dies down, Jon Jones is going to change and flip the narrative of this whole entire fiasco, just like Floyd Mayweather does, just like all these other boxers that have, ducked a lot of people around their way. You know what I mean? This is exactly what they do, okay? Moa says, how is Tom champion if he never earned the belt? Well, guess what, man? That's just how it is. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of email champions in boxing, right? Especially if, let's say, one fighter moves up to being, the regular champion. There's a diamond champion, and then there's an interim champion, and then there's all these other different champions in between, right? That's how it is. Look, Tom should be the champion regardless, because there's nobody else there to fight. Francis Ngannou is no longer in the UFC, but guess what? You want to talk about what's next? Maybe Francis Ngannou is what's next. Maverick 77 Defender says Tom Aspinall will now duck Ciryl Gane. You know what? Please explain a little bit of that to me, Maverick, because I do hear a lot of talks about Tom Aspinall ducking Ciryl Gane. And quite frankly, I don't know how serious that notion is. I don't know if people say that out of a joke. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that is a joke that people say, because in the back of my mind, I'm like thinking, man, you know what? That is a guy that is definitely not afraid of no Ciryl Gane. I mean, he could take Ciryl Gane down and smash him up just like what Jon Jones did, supposedly, right? Tom is afraid of the French. Oh boy, let me tell you, that is the last thing you'd want to tell an Englishman, right? Imagine telling an Englishman, yeah, you're afraid of the French. That's like telling the Bloods that they're afraid of the Crips, and the Crips afraid of the Bloods, or the Norteños afraid of the Sureños. But speaking of which, I'm actually in a Norteño neighborhood right now, right? For those of you that know anything about California gangs, this section right here was featured in a Norteño documentary about California gangs up here in Northern California. So, we're all having fun in here. Yep. Shout outs to you, man. Shout outs to Matua And Ja, yeah, man, we're definitely all having fun in here, right? You know, having a great conversation about Jon Jones retiring. And not only that, you know, let's celebrate the great moments that Jon Jones has put on for his career. How about the Rashad Evans fight? How about the fight that he had with Rampage Jackson when many people thought that he was going to win that fight? How about, you know, the fight with Lyoto Machida where he choked Lyoto Machida unconscious and then dropped his body lifeless, right? I mean, that is something to celebrate about. Jon Jones's career deserves to be celebrated. But you know what? Just like with all cycle of things, it moves on to the next guy and the next guy after that. And nobody is special above anybody else because they will always find another guy to replace you, whether that is in the NFL, whether that's in Premier League soccer. You look at what happens in Manchester City, right? For those of you that watch soccer and know anything about Manchester City, do you know what is going on with that club right now? They are creating a massive rechange. Now, they already got a good team, okay? They got great players. But you know what? They're already doing more to bring in new players that could replace the older players because they know that some of these older players are going to be decaying in their last years. So they got to bring new people in. Matua says, body dropping like a bag of hammers. Matua also says, Tom was ducking Jon the entire time. Tom was ducking Jon the entire time? That is an interesting take right there. I don't know what motivated you to make a take like that, but that is interesting to say the very least. So, yeah, man, that is interesting. But, man, Jon Jones has nothing to be ashamed of, right? Just like what Josh said earlier. Josh said earlier, hey, listen, being a father is a W. And you know what? All of you that are calling Tom a duck or Jon a duck or Cyril Gane a duck or any of these guys a duck, they don't care. Because by the end of the day, they have to go back to their families. And of course, don't get me wrong, it's great banter. It's great conversation to make, considering that, hey, you know what? Here we are. Here we are talking about a juicy story, right? We've been really anticipating the Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall fight for a long time. It didn't happen. Now this news drops in the middle of all this turmoil that is going on around the world. Because you know what? Here's a crazy take. Jon Jones said that if I retire after that Stipe fight, I would be perfectly okay with that. He said, I fought in front of my president. I fought in New York City, a city or a state that I grew up in. And I beat one of the best heavyweights of all time, statistically speaking, because Stipe did get more title defenses than anybody in the heavyweight division. Now, is it a possibility that maybe somebody like Tom Aspinall could beat that record? Of course. Listen, you look at the career tree of Tom Aspinall, you know that he can beat that record easily. He can absolutely beat that record easily. He's already done it. Look at the first round knockouts that he's been getting, the submissions in the first round, the finishes. He can absolutely get the 3 title defenses with ease, and he probably should have already earned it based on some of the merits that he's earned as of late. Josh says, I mean, Jon does beat his block. Oh, wow. Okay. Though it is out of vacationing and partying in Thailand instead of taking care of his family. Well, look, here's the thing, right? We all have to go out and get jobs, right? We all have to get out of our house to go to a job. This is no different. Being a host and being a coach in the Ultimate Fighter of Russia, or at least that version of the Ultimate Fighter, maybe from N1 Global or whatever Russian organization that was, that's work. That is work. He's getting paid for that. So I guess, you know, but for all we know, maybe his family was there. But then again, Jon is the type of person that if his family is going to be brought, he's going to let you know, right? Like me, for example, I've been in a lot of videos. I've been in a lot of traveling arrangements where I've done, like, let's say, videos in LA. right, in Santa Monica. You don't know whether I had my family there or whether I didn't have my family there because I'm not very disclosing like that. Now, obviously, Cha made an observation earlier that I probably didn't want him to make, but you know what? I'm going to run with it anyway, right? You know, but that's the thing, right? You just never know what, who or who is behind who and what. But I would imagine, yeah, Jon is the type of person that would probably let us know that his family was with him if he was going to bring them to Thailand. Okay, so Fresh Melon Juice says after that, when Aspinall ends his career, his best win will be over Ciryl Gane. The heavyweight division is DEAD. Yeah, man, it's hard for me to disagree with you on that. There's been an influx of problems in the heavyweight division, not just in the UFC, but in all of MMA. Fresh Melon Juice says Aspinall will defend 2 to 3 times before he retires. Maybe even more. Maybe even more. Because you know what? Now that Jon is out of the picture, he can now probably make as many fights as he wants, right? So now we got a fight maybe in October or November. Okay, he knocks that one out. Let's say he gets a first round knockout. Then after November, then he can go into the springtime, right? After the springtime, he gets a win. After that, he gets another fight in the summer of 2026. After the summer of 2026, then he gets another fight in the fall of 2026 and then calls it quits maybe in 2027 or gets beat by another heavyweight that is out there, fresh, young, energetic, and ready to beat him. Who knows? Josh says at Fresh Melon Juice, how about Ngannou? Now, how about that? Ooh, okay. We're going to talk about Ngannou because he's an important focal point of this whole entire argument and this whole entire story right here. Let me know if you guys are ready to talk about Francis Ngannou and how he's going to clear up all of this, okay? Look, I need somebody to hit one like button right now on the chat. Just one like button or one subscribe button, and then we're going to get on and cracking with what I'm about to tell you in terms of the triangle with Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall and Francis Ngannou. This is very important right here, okay? I'm going to get to this particular subject. Do you guys remember when Ciryl Gane lost to Francis Ngannou? And when he lost to Francis Ngannou left the company. You guys remember that, right? It's always Ciryl Gane in the midst of all these, right? Because Ciryl Gane is a top heavyweight, and it shows you how dead the heavyweight division is, because as top of a heavyweight that Ciryl Gane is, he doesn't have wrestling. And you're supposed to be well-rounded if you're fighting at that top level, but he doesn't have great wrestling. I mean, look, he's got okay wrestling, but he doesn't have elite wrestling, okay? Yeah, I already liked for you, so shout out to you on that. Okay, so check this out. They've been preparing Ciryl Gane for Tom Aspinall for a while. They gave him a Netflix movie. They gave him 2 Netflix movies. 1, The Cage, where he plays himself, and 2, KO, where he plays a fictional character. So he's been in 2 Netflix movies already. Guess who the UFC is looking to sign with? Do you guys see what I'm saying now? The UFC is ready to sign with Netflix, and Ciryl Gane was given 2 Netflix movies in between this fiasco with Francis Ngannou and Jon Jones. So now, Francis Ngannou beats Ciryl Gane. Francis Ngannou is gone. No pun intended. He's Ciryl Gane up out of the UFC, okay? Now they have to bring in Jon Jones to legitimize the heavyweight belt. He brings him in. He beats Ciryl Gane. After Ciryl Gane, and you know what? It could have gone either way, because if Ciryl Gane was to beat Jon Jones, then great. Now we got a heavyweight that beat one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. So great. By the way, bro, you look like you lost some weight. Thank you, my man. You know what? A little bit. You know, I fluctuate a little bit with weight. You know, maybe, 5 to 10 pounds or so. But yeah, I would say I've been, I've been calorie counting. I always train don't get it wrong. You know, I always train. You know, I could always be, you know, a lot skinnier or a lot buffer or somewhere in between, but it would all really predicate on my food assumption, my food consumption. So thank you for that. Looking really healthy. Thank you, my man. Thank you. Really appreciate that. I'm glad you're noticing that. So they bring in Jon Jones to legitimize the heavyweight belt, but it's only going to be for a temporary moment of time because they knew that Jon Jones was already on his way out. Look, Jon Jones needs to go and enjoy his life, okay? You want to know why he needs to go enjoy his life? Because Jon Jones has not been training like a professional athlete forever, okay? He just got lucky on his skills alone, and that takes a limited amount of time in your career. Now, could Jon Jones have gone on to fight in his 40s? Sure. But Jon Jones is not Randy Couture. And as such, where he's not Randy Couture, he's not the type of guy that would keep up a certain training regimen, right? To where he's in a competitive shape all year round. And he's not Randy Couture in terms of willing to take a risk with risky fights. Randy Couture went in there and took on some risky fights. That's why he has a damn near 50-50 record, even if he is a double champion. That's the reality of, you know, Randy Couture. Robert Sterling says, this guy trains eating donuts. I don't know about that, my man. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea who I am or what I look like in training or what I look like in a fight, you know, or any of that situation, you know. But I do have all those videos right here on my channel if you want to check it out, if you think that I'm some chump or whatever. But I guarantee you, you couldn't do half of the things that I could do. And that's just the reality of it, my man. But Robert Sterling, what an absolute hilarious joke you just made. It is a hilarious joke, isn't it? Because, you know, he just has no idea. But you know what? Here's the thing, right? You look at Daniel Cormier. If you didn't know anything about MMA and you didn't know anything about Daniel Cormier or this and that, you would probably think he's just, you know, somebody's dad or something like that. But that's neither here or there. That's neither here or there. But I'm not even going to, you know, address that because, you know what, you can't argue with a fool. And that's just one of the things that you have to learn as you get older, is that you cannot argue with a fool, because a fool is a fool for the rest of his life, and that's just how it's going to be. So, you know, I feel sorry for Robert Sterling and that question that you made. But yeah, let's not delve into negativity and just, you know, focus more on what is positive right now, okay? And what is positive right now is that we are talking about a great subject and a great story in MMA right now, which is that Jon Jones is retiring, and now Tom Aspinall has a chance to finally defend his belt. So, okay, where was I with my monologue? Jon Jones has already held on to the belt after he beat Cyril Gane, right? Because they needed to legitimize that belt after Francis Ngannou was gone. Okay, now Francis Ngannou made himself even bigger. He boxed Tyson Fury, loses, still made a great account of himself after knocking him down. He boxes Anthony Joshua, loses, gets devastatingly knocked out, doesn't even look good against Anthony Joshua, which kind of makes you think, how would that boxing match between Fury and Joshua even look like at this point, right? And then he goes back to the PFL, does one PFL fight after the PFL allows him to fight in boxing. And then after that fight, he goes and fights a 6'8" Renan Ferreira and then gets a first round knockout. Easy work, right? So now, Francis Ngannou is thinking about getting out of the UFC. I'm sorry, getting out of PFL, because PFL is dying. And while PFL is dying, here comes Eric Nixick, the coach of Francis Ngannou, proclaiming that there is a possibility he will come back. Rob, tell us another funny joke. Yeah, Rob, come on. Come tell us another funny joke, Rob. But leave Rob alone. You know, he made that one comment, but if he wants to continue to perpetuate and make a fool out of himself, he's more than welcome to do so. But on any regard, man, I want to remain positive because you know what? Even though I love to bring hellfire and brimstone when it comes to roasting people and this and that, sometimes, you know what? It's always good to embrace positivity. I don't know, maybe because of the California sun that I'm out right now, that sort of is, putting me in that positive mood. But on any regard, yeah, that's the reality of it, guys. We're just trying to be positive. So now, what is the best case scenario that we got out of all of this? After I'm giving you my monologue of this triangle between Aspinall, Jon Jones, Cyril Gane, and Francis Ngannou, what is the next best course of action? Have Tom Aspinall fight Francis Ngannou. Why? Why should we let Francis Ngannou come back into UFC and fight Tom Aspinall? Because Tom Aspinall really needs to legitimize himself as the greatest heavyweight of all time and a linear champion of the heavyweight division. Because Francis Ngannou is the real linear heavyweight champion. Now, it doesn't feel like it, because after he got knocked out by Anthony Joshua, Dana White went on a campaign to smother Francis Ngannou, and just because he lost in a boxing match, he lost twice in a boxing match. One, he got knocked out. It is as if he lost his UFC belt in the way that Dana White is making it look out to be, even though that belt was not on the line in a boxing match, because it's not within that rule set. You understand what I'm saying? So, you bring Francis Ngannou back, Tom Aspinall beats him, and I believe Tom Aspinall can beat him, because there was a point where Tom Aspinall wasn't even sure if he could beat Francis Ngannou. He didn't want to move up too quickly. And then he started realizing, you know what? I could beat a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys, they're not on my level. They're not on my level. But then there was a time where his whole prerogative was, something to the extent of, I don't want to be a UK hype train. I just want to take my time. I just want to take easy fights. And I just want to, you know what I mean? Yeah, that was Tom Aspinall in a nutshell. That was literally Tom Aspinall in a nutshell. What do we have here? Oh, did Usman get a gifted win because he is Kamaru Usman's big bro? You know what? That's a good question, Jai. You know what I think it is? I think that the judges saw something completely different than that of, that's what I think it is. They saw something way different. They saw something different. Because remember, these are new commissions, new judges, and as a result of that, they just have a different trajectory in how they go about things, right? They have a different way of looking at fights. They have a different way of interpreting fights. I think that's really what it is more than anything, because I'm going to be honest with you, man, I really thought the Egyptian won that one. The Egyptian Greco-Roman wrestler. And you know what? It would have been great to actually see Hamdi win over Usman. Now, look, I know he's Kamaru Usman's brother, but imagine if Hamdi got up in a heavyweight division, started winning, and then put Egypt on the map, put Egyptian wrestling on the map. Because you know what? Out of all the countries in North Africa, and maybe even around the world, I'm going to say that Egypt is one of the most successful wrestling programs there is. I mean, really, I'm not kidding. Egypt really is one of the most successful, wrestling programs in all of North Africa. Fresh Melon Juice says, Francis almost got smoked by Cyril Gane. Very true. Although we have to take into consideration he had bad knees in there. If Cyril Gane doesn't go for a leg lock, he wins. Jon Jones choked him in 1 minute. That's what I'm saying, right? That's why a lot of people do not give the heavyweight division any credit. They don't give it any steam. They don't give it the respect that it deserves, because Tom Aspinall, look at the people that Tom Aspinall smoked, right? Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades won tonight, regardless of how you saw it. I didn't think that he won, but on the cards he won, and unfortunately that's all that matters. So he advances. So he's still winning in his career. Pavlovich, okay, he's still a dangerous heavyweight, but Tom smoked him. Myson Tybura, the same thing. He's right up there, but yeah, you know, he's a top guy that's sort of like 50-50 sometimes in certain situations. So that is why the heavyweight division looks like a joke to a lot of people. But in reality, is it really a joke? Well, it is and it isn't. You know what I think? I think that the heavyweight division right now is just developing. It's developing into its new skin. It's becoming its own thing in terms of its identity, right? Because there's a lot of fighters that are good at certain aspects of the game, and then there are certain fighters that are one-dimensional, and then there are some fighters that are well-rounded, and then there's very few of them that are well-rounded. And the only one that's really well-rounded right now is that of Tom Aspinall. Josh says, I think Francis psyched himself out against Cyril like he did with Derek Lewis. Well, yeah, I mean, you know what, Ja, he was injured in that fight, so we have to, you know, really be cognizant of that. He was injured in that fight, and as a result of that injury, I don't think that he was able to give the best account of himself. So, yeah, we have to be very, you know, cognizant of that reality. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, man. Francis fought Gunn like he did Overeem. Cyril is getting flatlined. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. So he did knock out Overeem, and it was a bad, devastating knockout. I mean, it was just, wow, boom, that uppercut, right? You know, that super uppercut. I think some guys get caught in certain sequences of fights, and sometimes that's not indicative of everything. Okay, what do I mean by that, right? Okay, so Dominic Cruz lost to Uriah Faber in the first time they fought by guillotine choke, right? He choked Dominic Cruz out. The second time they fought, and then third time they fought, how did it go? It went to a decision. You want to know why it went to a decision? Because Dominic Cruz is a decision machine. He knows how to fight and win on points. And sometimes finishes can come with the right sequences involved. I think Francis Ngannou put himself in the right sequence to knock out Overeem. Now, why was he not able to flatline Cyril Gane in that particular matter? Because he was injured. And then you also have to understand he knows him. You see, if you know somebody well enough, you know how to dodge all of their dangerous tendencies. Josh says he has a tendency to get in his own head. Are you talking about Francis Ngannou? Let me know who you mean when you say he has, you know, a tendency to get in his own head. Let me know what you mean by that. So, we're almost heading into the 1 hour mark of this live stream. I just wanted to do this live stream for 1 hour. So what I'm going to do in the 5-minute mark, the last 5 minutes of the live stream, I'm going to let you guys ask all the questions that you want regarding anything, regarding the Jon Jones, which we've covered extensively, regarding the matchups that is going to be possible for Tom Aspinall, also regarding the legacy of Jon Jones, also the fights tonight. Josh says against Gane and Lewis, he becomes reversed. Against Gane and Lewis, he becomes reversed. Okay, well, all right, let's analyze that, right? Let's analyze that for a second. There's a boxing match, a celebrity boxing match that reminded me of of Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou. You want to know what that celebrity boxing? Well, they're not actually celebrities, but they're more like gangbanger influencers. There's one guy who's a YouTuber who's also a known Crip named Nina Boy. He boxed this dude named Boscow, who is a Blood from LA. So both of these are LA guys, right? One is a Blood, one is a Crip. They're both social media influencers, okay? So I'm going to tell you what's significant about this fight. they went in there hesitant in a very similar fashion. Oh, reserved. Okay, he's reserved. Okay, reserved. Got it. Lewis due to fear out of KO power and Gunn due to familiarity. Correct. Okay, so that's a very good point. So with these two guys, they knew each other, those influencers. So just like what you said, Ja, these are two guys that have familiarity with each other. And then not only that, there's a fear of KO. But not only is there a fear of KO, these are guys that are also scared of getting hit. Not because they're afraid of getting hit, but they're afraid of how people are going to look at them when they get hit. Because remember, these are gangster social media influencers. These guys are not full-time boxers or MMA fighters, where if you lose a fight, hey, guess what? You got a whole entire season to redeem yourself, a whole entire year to get maybe 2 or 3 fights in, and you don't got to worry about it. You don't got to worry about anything. But if you're a gangster and you're an influencer and then you're in there in a so-called celebrity boxing match and you're getting hit every second, guess what? Oh man, you let him hit you too many times. That's going to be the talk in the streets, right? But lo and behold, they did so bad that both of their gangs actually wanted to jump them because of how bad they did in that fight, because it was very similar to that of Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis, just in a boxing version. Josh says, if Francis gets out of his own head and lets the cannon go, I think he destroys Gunn. You saying something on the money. Francis has a fear of getting hit. Josh says, we saw that after he got clipped in the Joshua fight. You know what? After the Joshua fight, one has to think, you know what? Maybe Francis Ngannou now is going to be reluctant in throwing shots, right? But it didn't look like that in the Pereira fight, because Pereira is an even bigger guy than that of Francis Ngannou. I'm sorry, than that of Anthony Joshua. And he walked right through him. Right? So, I don't know, man. I don't know if there's going to be any evidence that from now on, Francis Ngannou is going to look scared. Although he should be, but I don't know. There's not evidence of that in a Pereira fight. Now, in a Tom Aspinall fight, remember, Tom Aspinall has dynamite in his hand. So there is a great possibility that he will clip him. There is a great possibility that he can absolutely end him right there. That is a strong, strong possibility. Absolutely strong possibility. So, what else, man? So we got about 2 minutes left. Anybody could ask any questions regarding anything, and then we'll call it a day. I really just wanted to get in here for 1 hour, go for a drive, talk about the fights, and then react to Jon Jones finally retiring, and now Tom Aspinall becoming the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. So we got about 2 minutes left. Whatever you guys want to ask, ask away, because yeah, I'm gonna go and head out right after this one. So Josh says, yeah, potentially it is an experience thing, but what I'm saying is that in the past, Ngannou has had a fear of getting clipped, which is why he fought Gunn and Lewis as reserved as he did. Okay, so yes, even before the Anthony Joshua fight, you're right. He has a high susceptibility of being scared to get hit, especially if he knows that the guy has dynamite power. But with that in mind, I tell you what, this is why this fight with Tom Aspinall is going to be even epic. Think about how epic this is going to be. Also, why he fought bewildered versus Joshua after eating that first straight. Okay, so I'll tell you this about Anthony Joshua, right? And then I'm going to leave it with this. I'm going to make this my last statement before I head out, right? Okay, and then Josh says when he fights guys like he did Pereira, he mauls them. Correct. Okay, so this is my theory on the Anthony Joshua fight, right? You're absolutely right. When he fights a guy that has heavy power, he is absolutely scared. Anthony Joshua, the reason why he was able to get knocked out by Anthony Joshua is because Anthony Joshua, like Tyson Fury, is a skilled boxer. But unlike Anthony Joshua, and even the father of Tyson Fury has said this, he doesn't have the muscle or the horsepower that Anthony Joshua has. So therefore, he wasn't able to show his skills and his attributes of power through boxing in the way that Anthony Joshua did. Now, you got Anthony Joshua equally as strong as Francis Ngannou. For all we know, Anthony Joshua could probably do as much as Francis Ngannou when it comes to the weight room, right? I mean, he's built. He has that African genetics like Francis Ngannou. He's got that, strong genes about him. But Anthony Joshua is the seasoned boxer, and as a result of that, it is the reason why he was able to knock him out. Josh says when he fights, we read that when he fights guys like he did Pereira, he mauls them. Fresh Melon Juice says Aspinall is horrible on his back. If Almeida gets him down, he can steal rounds. That's very interesting. That is very interesting. Okay. Okay. So maybe there are some challenges ahead for Tom Aspinall that we didn't know about. Josh says 100% Joshua outclassed him through skill, but I was just talking about Ngannou's demeanor. Even if Ngannou was on his best, I think Joshua pieces him up. Terrible matchup for Ngannou. And with that in mind, that is all that we have for this one right now. I'm going to end it with this, guys. Look, a lot of people out there are going to say things to you in terms of giving you advice on what you should do and what you should not do. A lot of people mean well, but also a lot of people are mean, and they don't mean any well towards you whatsoever. So you got to understand and know the difference, okay? Why I'm saying this is because in the light of Jon Jones's retirement, many people are going to criticize him heavily for this retirement. And as such, Jon Jones is the man who has to live with himself, has to look at himself in the mirror, all of his mistakes and all of his accomplishments, whether inside or outside of the cage, whether it was through the accolades of his professional life or whether it was the accolades of his personal life. He now has to face all of these things. He now has to face a new chapter in his career. It is him that has to answer to himself, but more importantly, it is him that has to answer to the one and only God, Allah. Okay, that is the reality of this situation. So, regardless of what we say, everything that we say here in the world of YouTube, entertainment, and combat sports, MMA streaming, it's all for entertainment and it is all for speculation, sometimes even for just education purposes in learning about martial arts and learning about the business and learning about everything that comes between that. But on any regard, let me read these last two statements and I'm going to go. Josh says, Joshua's weakness is durable guys. Correct. Ngannou is not a guy that historically takes a huge shot and becomes like Andy Ruiz. When you mean Andy Ruiz, you mean like how Andy Ruiz made Anthony Joshua look? If so, yeah, I think that's what you mean. If Ngannou was durable like Mark Hunt, he'd be unbeatable. Wow. You know what? There's another matchup right there that we missed, but obviously both in different trajectories of your career. Mark Hunt sort of in a 50-50 career, 50-50 record. Ngannou already in the championship realm, so it's a matchup that we never got to see, unfortunately. Roma says, what is your favorite Twitter MMA page? Don't really have one. I do have my own Twitter page, but I don't really do much with it other than just, post my content. Josh says, Andy Ruiz got knocked down and got up and knocked out Joshua. Oh, okay, so that's what you mean by durable. And with that in mind, you know who else was durable? To kind of give good memory of his career was Jon Jones. How about the durability that he had against not only Daniel Cormier, not only Dominic Cruz, but one of his hardest fights that he's ever had in his career, and that was with Alexander Gustafsson. He showed a lot of a lot of durability there. What's the name of your page? Well, this is my channel right here on YouTube. Like and subscribe. And also, my link for my Twitter will be there if you want to add me on that as well. So with that in mind, guys, thank you so much. This has been great. I want to send a good congratulations to Jon Jones for an illustrious career. And I want to give a good luck to Tom Aspinall as the new crowned undisputed champion of the world, and now potentially facing a multitude of different challengers along his way. Josh says, I mean, he got... Okay, we read that part. Okay. Well, with that in mind, guys, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one, inshallah.